The Senate Judiciary Committee hearing room buzzed with anticipation as cameras clicked and reporters murmured quietly, their attention fixed on the two figures seated across from each other. Senator John Kennedy, the seasoned Republican from Louisiana, known for his trademark folksy demeanor and deceptively sharp intellect, leaned back in his chair, adjusting his glasses with a faint smile that suggested confidence. Across from him sat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a freshman representative from Texas, whose bright yellow blazer stood out against the solemn wood-paneled chamber. As both a sitting member of Congress and a Harvard-trained criminal defense attorney, Crockett carried herself with a calm confidence that betrayed none of the tension swirling around the room. Kennedy, who had built a reputation for dismantling witnesses with condescending questions designed to go viral, seemed certain this would be another easy win. What he didn't realize was that Crockett had studied his style, reviewed his previous hearings, and prepared meticulously for every possible trap. This was not just another committee session. It was about to become a defining political moment. As the hearing began, Kennedy greeted her with his signature Southern drawl, remarking that he had heard she was quite the firebrand on social media and that he was curious to see how her Twitter skills translated to real constitutional questions. Laughter rippled through his side of the room, but Crockett remained composed, adjusting her microphone slightly before responding. Kennedy began with a predictable strategy, establishing her relative inexperience. He asked about her first-term status, her previous role as a Texas state legislator, and her years as a defense attorney, his tone suggesting polite skepticism. Crockett responded evenly, explaining that her experience as a public defender and legislator had given her deep familiarity with constitutional rights. Kennedy waved this off, implying that today's hearing was above the scope of courtroom experience. The subtext was clear. He meant to undermine her credibility. Kennedy then steered the questioning toward her prior public statements about the Supreme Court, quoting her characterization of it as illegitimate and extremist. His intent was obvious, to corner her into either retracting her words or doubling down in a way that could be portrayed as radical. Crockett, unfazed, leaned forward and carefully articulated that her concern lay not with the existence of the court itself, but with its recent departures from precedent, which appeared to align suspiciously with political ideology rather than consistent judicial reasoning. Kennedy, sensing an opening, pressed further, asking whether Congress had any constitutional authority to question another co-equal branch of government. This was one of his favorite traps, designed to expose ignorance. Instead, Crockett deftly cited Article 1 and Article 3 of the Constitution, explaining how Congress has the power to regulate the court's jurisdiction and maintain checks and balances among the branches. Quoting Alexander Hamilton from Federalist 78, she reminded the committee that the judiciary's legitimacy depends on the consistent application of principle, not politics. The precision of her constitutional citation visibly threw Kennedy off balance. He tried to pivot, insisting that her critique amounted to delegitimization, but she countered by distinguishing between attacking the institution and challenging inconsistent reasoning. Invoking Jefferson's warning that the Constitution should not be rendered meaningless through selective interpretation, she struck at the heart of Kennedy's argument. Frustrated, he moved on to abortion rights, asking her to show where in the Constitution the right to abortion, or even privacy, appears. It was a classic conservative question, designed to trap progressive witnesses. But Crockett was ready. She cited the Ninth Amendment, which preserves rights not explicitly enumerated in the text, and connected it to the privacy protections implied throughout the Bill of Rights. The Fourth Amendment's protection against unreasonable searches, the Third's ban on quartering soldiers, and the Fifth's shield against self-incrimination. These, she argued, collectively establish a sphere of personal privacy. Kennedy attempted to narrow the scope back to abortion specifically, but Crockett smoothly invoked the 14th Amendment's Due Process Clause, explaining that liberty includes autonomy over personal and family decisions. Then, with quiet precision, she contrasted the supposed constitutional conservatism of those who decry government regulation of business while endorsing government control over personal medical decisions. The room murmured in approval. Kennedy's trademark smirk faded as he changed tactics again, accusing Crockett of supporting a living constitution approach, which he dismissed as judicial activism. She responded by highlighting the hypocrisy of so-called originalists who abandon their own principles when convenient. Quoting Justice Scalia and Chief Justice Marshall, she pointed out that the Constitution was written in broad terms precisely so it could evolve with society. When Kennedy tried to correct her citation, she acknowledged his partial correctness and smoothly tied it back to Madison's writings in Federalist 44, effectively turning the correction into a deeper point. Observers whispered that she was out-constituting Kennedy. By now, the hearing had gone far beyond routine questioning. Clips of the exchange were already making their way online. Kennedy, perhaps sensing the shift in the room, tried once more to reclaim control. He accused her of calling the Supreme Court extremist for following the text of the Constitution. Crockett calmly replied that her criticism was rooted in the court's inconsistency, not its textual fidelity. Producing excerpts from confirmation hearings of Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Barrett, she noted how both had affirmed the importance of precedent, or super-precedent in Barrett's words, regarding landmark cases such as Roe v. Wade. The court's abandonment of such precedent without compelling reason, she explained, undermines both stability and public trust. The tension was palpable. Kennedy's folksy charm was replaced with visible irritation as he reminded her that precedent can be overturned. Citing Plessy v. Ferguson and Brown v. Board, Crockett agreed, but with precision. Brown expanded rights. It didn't restrict them. The court's recent trend, she argued, was regressive, undoing protections previously recognized as fundamental. Kennedy's irritation deepened. With his planned questions spent, he shifted toward personal attacks, suggesting she was merely reciting talking points prepared by her staff. Crockett ignored the bait, maintaining composure. Kennedy tried another angle, accusing her of hypocrisy for supporting the Obergefell v. Hodges, ruling on same-sex marriage while opposing Dobbs. Crockett's rebuttal was immediate and thorough. She explained that Obergefell followed a consistent constitutional thread from Loving v. Virginia through Turner v. Safely, applying equal protection to expand liberty. Dobbs, by contrast, broke with precedent to restrict it. Her distinction was clear. The difference lay in whether rights were expanded or contracted. Kennedy, visibly losing ground, resorted to a cultural flashpoint. With a faint smirk, he asked, "Can you tell me where the Constitution defines what a woman is?" The room fell silent. This was his infamous gender trap, designed to create viral controversy. But Crockett dismantled it effortlessly. She explained that the Constitution defines neither woman, person, citizen, nor speech, yet these terms underpin its most important rights. The 14th and 19th Amendments extend protections based on equality, not definitions. Historically, she reminded him, the original understanding of woman excluded property rights, jury service, and suffrage. Thus, to apply originalism, literally, would mean revoking over a century of progress. The senator tried to interrupt, but Crockett pressed on, accusing him politely but firmly of using hearings for sound bites rather than substantive oversight. The remark landed hard. Kennedy's face reddened, and his confidence visibly waned. The room erupted in applause from the Democratic side as journalists typed furiously, recognizing the viral moment unfolding before them. Kennedy, uncharacteristically quiet, muttered that his time had expired and thanked the witness without making eye contact. Within minutes, clips of Crockett School's Kennedy were trending across social media, amassing millions of views. CNN headlined it as Freshman Rep Turns, Tables on Senator Kennedy, while Fox News framed it as a constitutional debate gone off script. Kennedy's reputation as the unflappable inquisitor had taken a rare hit. Conservative outlets scrambled to spin the outcome, but even right-leaning commentators acknowledged Crockett's command of constitutional law. The National Review published a piece titled, "When Gotchas Backfire: Lessons from the Kennedy-Crockett Exchange." Kennedy, seeking to contain the fallout, appeared on Fox News the next evening, praising Crockett as well-prepared and articulate, while insisting the debate was healthy. The damage, however, was done. For Crockett, the exchange became a defining moment. Requests for interviews and speaking engagements flooded her office. Rather than celebrating, She used her newfound platform to refocus attention on constitutional principles and judicial integrity. When asked about destroying Kennedy, she replied simply that the real issue was ensuring consistency in the application of law. Legal scholars across ideological lines took note. Harvard's Lawrence Tribe praised her preparedness and composure, while conservative scholar Randy Barnett commended her substantive argumentation despite disagreement. Law schools began assigning the transcript as required reading to illustrate modern constitutional debate in a political setting. Within Congress, Crockett's standing rose sharply. Senior Democrats began consulting her on judiciary strategy, and progressives rallied around her as a model of substance over spectacle. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez shared the clip with the caption, "This is how it's done. Know your stuff better than they know theirs." Even Bernie Sanders reposted it, remarking that true strength lies in substance, not theatrics. Meanwhile, Kennedy's staff quietly began revising their hearing tactics, aware that the gotcha strategy might not survive encounters with equally prepared witnesses. Editorial boards weighed in, suggesting that the exchange exposed a deeper problem with performative politics, where hearings become viral theater rather than vehicles for governance. The Washington Post wrote that the encounter reminded America that knowledge, preparation, and respect for constitutional nuance still matter. Over time, pulling a Crockett became political shorthand for turning a trap back on its creator through superior command of facts. For Kennedy, the lesson was costly. The aura of invincibility around his hearing performances had cracked. For Crockett, the event launched her into the national spotlight as both a legislator and legal authority. Donations to her campaign surged, and Democratic leadership began considering her for higher-profile committee roles. Beyond politics, the confrontation symbolized a broader cultural shift, one in which substance briefly triumphed over spectacle. And a younger, well-prepared lawmaker demonstrated that even Washington's most experienced interrogators could be outmatched by genuine expertise. Months later, the two reportedly crossed paths at a Washington event and exchanged polite laughter, a moment suggesting mutual recognition of what their exchange had become. A permanent fixture in modern American political law, the Kennedy-Crockett hearing will be remembered not as a typical partisan skirmish, but as a rare instance where intellect and preparation overpowered theatrics and condescension, a vivid reminder that, in politics as in law, knowledge remains the most formidable weapon. In the end, the Kennedy-Crockett hearing stood as more than a viral moment. It became a symbol of a changing era in American politics, one where preparation, intellect, and command of the Constitution could cut through performance and posturing. What began as an attempt to corner a first-term congresswoman ended up reshaping public perception of both politicians and reminding the nation that knowledge still holds power in the age of spectacle. For Jasmine Crockett, it marked the beginning of a new phase in her career, one defined not by confrontation, but by credibility. And for Senator Kennedy, it served as a lasting reminder that underestimating your opponent can sometimes lead to the most humbling lessons. As their exchange continues to circulate online and inspire new discussions about accountability, law, and leadership, it remains a rare example of substance prevailing over showmanship, a moment that will be studied and remembered for years to come. If you found this breakdown insightful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our in-depth political analyses and factual breakdowns of the biggest moments in American governance. Your support helps us bring you more thoughtful, research-driven content that cuts through the noise and focuses on what truly matters, the facts, the law, and the truth behind the headlines. And as always, let us know in the comments which political showdown or congressional moment you'd like us to cover next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.